The story begins with a woman named Jupiter, who works as a housekeeper for wealthy families while living with her large family in a cramped house. Meanwhile, on a distant and abandoned planet, three siblings from the influential house of Abrasax reunite after many years apart. Their mother recently passed away, leaving each of them ownership of certain planets, with the eldest brother, Balaam, inheriting Earth. Titus, the youngest sibling, expresses an interest in buying Earth from his brother. Kalik points out that Earth is incredibly valuable. The next day, a tracker named Cain appears on the city streets and is spotted by a trio of bounty hunters. The hunters watch as Cain uses a specialized device to bypass a locked door and enter a clinic, where he searches for the profile of a patient named Catherine. Upon leaving, he finds the hunters waiting for him, prompting him to activate his anti-gravity boots to make an escape. The bounty hunters open fire to stop him, but after a brief exchange of shots, Cain manages to flee. When Balaam learns they have identified a unique genetic signature in Catherine, he orders her to be eliminated. It turns out this Catherine is a friend of Jupiter. That evening, while Catherine is helping Jupiter pick out a dress, Jupiter hears her scream. Jupiter sees a group of aliens performing a procedure on Catherine's floating body and manages to take a picture with her phone. Suddenly, her phone rings and alerts the aliens, who quickly knock her unconscious. Sometime later, the women wake up with no memory of what happened, and Jupiter goes to the clinic using Catherine's name. While looking at her phone, she finds the photo of the aliens she took the night before. The doctor calls her into the operating room. As the staff prepares her, Jupiter feels that something is wrong and tries to leave, but her body suddenly begins to levitate. It turns out the entire staff is actually composed of aliens, and when they analyze her DNA, they confirm she is the real target with the unique genetic signature, realizing the mix-up happened because of the swapped names. The aliens intend to eliminate her, but Cain suddenly arrives, shoots them all, and rescues Jupiter as she faints. Meanwhile, aboard a starship, Titus receives word that his tracker has found the girl, so he sends a transport to collect her. 12 hours later, Jupiter wakes up in a room and grabs Cain's weapon to demand answers. Cain explains that there are many different forms of life across the universe, sharing that he is a human-wolf hybrid. He notes that the small aliens are known as keepers, and they want to eliminate her because of her specific genetic makeup. To prove his story, Cain demonstrates a device that opens portals on walls. Just then, Titus's spaceship sends down a retrieval beam, prompting Cain to pick up Jupiter and fly toward it. Unfortunately, Balaam's vessels also arrive and cause Titus's ship to explode. Cain catches Jupiter before flying away. A chase ensues as hostile ships fire at Cain, hitting several buildings and vehicles in their path. Cain leads them toward a bridge where he has hidden a stolen shuttle. Cain returns fire and destroys a lot of drones. The shuttle is badly damaged, forcing Cain to jump out with Jupiter right before it explodes. The next morning, Cain explains that they are caught in a conflict within the Abrasax family, one of the most powerful dynasties in the universe. Their influence is so great that they are already repairing all the areas damaged by the fight, and the Keepers will soon erase everyone's memories, just as they did to Jupiter previously. Cain only knows that Titus wants Jupiter brought to his ship, while Balaam wants her dead. A few hours later, Jupiter and Cain arrive at the home of Stinger, an old ally of Cain. The moment Stinger sees Cain, he attacks him, desperate to avoid being pulled back into his old life. Their fight is suddenly stopped when a swarm of bees begins to circle Jupiter, moving in harmony with her hands. Upon seeing this, Stinger immediately kneels and addresses Jupiter as Your Majesty, explaining that bees have the ability to recognize genetic royalty. He then invites them inside and treats Cain's injuries with an instant healing spray, while revealing that Cain once had wings but lost them. While Jupiter steps away to take a phone call, Cain explains to Stinger that he had no idea she was royalty and that Titus had only promised him a new pair of wings as a reward. Stinger explains to Jupiter that humans do not originate from Earth. Instead, Abrasax Industries wiped out the dinosaurs and populated the planet with humans to be harvested later. Before Jupiter can ask what harvesting means, Cain warns them that the Keepers have gathered outside. Cain stays behind to fight off the attackers while Stinger flees with Jupiter, though Stinger is forced to return fire when they are cornered. A hunter corners them, knocking Stinger back with a shockwave, But when he tries to grab Jupiter, the local bees swarm to her defense. Jupiter runs into a nearby cornfield, but the hunter catches her and knocks her unconscious. As the keepers move in to finish her, the remaining hunters unexpectedly arrive and kill the keepers before taking Jupiter onto their ship. Cain finishes off his opponents and rushes out of the house just in time to cling to the departing ship without being seen. A few hours later, the hunter's ship arrives at a city, and Cain slips off the spaceship. The hunters sell Jupiter to Calic's agents, who offer a higher price than Balaam. When Jupiter wakes up, she is wearing an elegant gown in an unfamiliar room. Calic visits her and is visibly startled by how much Jupiter looks like her deceased mother. To prove this, Calic leads Jupiter to a statue, revealing that Jupiter is the genetic reincarnation of Calic's mother, who was assassinated at 90,000 years old. While Cain infiltrates the mansion to track Jupiter, he is spotted by security and has to fight his way through. At the same time, Calic shows Jupiter a ceremonial pool filled with a liquid that keeps her looking young, even though she is over 14,000 years old. This is the youth serum the siblings produce by harvesting human lives. She explains to Jupiter that her mother previously owned Earth, meaning that as her reincarnation, she can claim the planet for herself. Cain arrives and tries to rescue Jupiter, but she chooses to trust Calic and agrees to wait for a while. Meanwhile, an angry Balaam executes the commander who failed to capture Jupiter and sends a formidable soldier named Gregan to hunt her down. Shortly after, Stinger arrives with Captain Turner, who works for Aegis, the Universal Police Agency. They promise to safely escort Jupiter to the Commonwealth Ministry on Orus. Once Jupiter changes into more comfortable clothes, Cain visits her, and they share a quiet, tender moment. Eventually, the ship reaches Orus, the ancestral home of humanity. An android guides Jupiter through many offices and endless bureaucratic procedures that quickly become tedious. To speed up the process, the android ends up bribing a clerk, and Jupiter finally receives a seal on her wrist that legally identifies her as royalty. When Stinger appears, he is surrounded by bounty hunters and betrays Cain, having made a side deal with Titus. Shortly thereafter, Jupiter is taken to a different spaceship to meet with Titus, who promises to return her to Earth if she joins him for dinner. Meanwhile, Titus's guards lock Cain in a holding cell. During their meal, Jupiter asks about Cain's whereabouts, and Titus claims he has sent him back to his homeworld. He shows her his vast supply of the youth serum, but admits he never made the serum himself. Titus explains that his mother was killed because she wanted to stop this business. Titus wants to fulfill his mother's wishes. Jupiter believes him, but she hesitates when Titus proposes marriage as a way to unite their efforts against his siblings. Meanwhile, Stinger contacts Titus's guards to finish their arrangement. Once the call ends, it is revealed that Stinger was actually captured by Captain Turner, who forced him to make the call to trace the ship's location. Cain is brought before Titus and confronts him about his lies. Titus reveals his plan to marry Jupiter and then kill her so he can take Earth for himself. Immediately after, Cain is thrown out into the vacuum, but he manages to kick off a piece of the airlock. Cain uses his boots to break his handcuffs and grabs the gear, which serves as emergency protection. The ship leaves through a portal. Luckily, the Aegis ship arrives just in time to save him. He tells the crew they must rescue Jupiter and asks Stinger to help, giving Stinger the chance to explain that he only worked with Titus to secure a cure for his sick daughter, but remains loyal to Aegis. Back on Earth, Gregan crashes through the ceiling and takes Jupiter's family hostage. A few hours later, Jupiter is dressed in a luxurious gown and escorted to the ceremony. Outside, Titus's fleet surrounds the ship to defend it against the Aegis attack. Cain and Stinger show off their piloting skills, fighting hard against the enemy while Jupiter hesitates. She reluctantly starts to finish her vows, but when a symbolic ring is about to be printed onto her finger, she hears the battle outside. Titus forcefully holds her hand in place, but at that exact moment, Cain breaks into the room, points his weapon at Titus, and tells Jupiter the truth. Although Cain wants to defeat Titus, Jupiter simply begs him to take her away. The Aegis ship extracts Jupiter. Shortly after, they arrive on Earth, where Jupiter finds her home in ruins. Gregan is waiting there with Balaam's soldiers, explaining that Jupiter must go with them to give up her title if she wants her family to live. Although Turner and Kane warn her that it is a trap, Jupiter agrees to go anyway. Jupiter is taken away by Gregan in his ship while Turner and Kane try to follow. However, as soon as Gregan's ship crosses the portal is closed behind them. Turner is forced to turn the ship around to avoid a massive storm. Determined to protect her, Kane decides to head down to the planet by himself. He struggles through the storm, nearly dying in the process. His shuttle is badly damaged by the storm and makes a violent crash landing, damaging the facility's gravity hull. Inside Balaam's stronghold, Jupiter meets with him and accuses him of murdering his own mother, leading Balaam to strike her in anger. Balaam then orders Gregan to threaten her family's lives, and Jupiter agrees to sign the abdication. However, just as she is about to sign, she realizes that Balaam will harvest Earth regardless, and she refuses to sacrifice millions of lives to save her family. At that moment, Balaam's subordinates report the hull damage, and Kane suddenly breaks into the palace and attacks Gregan. Realizing her family is safe, Jupiter smashes the abdication tablet, causing an angry Balaam to try to kill her. Jupiter quickly kicks him back. Enraged, Balaam orders his guards to execute Jupiter, but Kane saves her by opening a portal right beneath her. Jupiter kisses him before he returns to fight Gregan. Jupiter then begins leading her family away while the facility staff begins to evacuate because the broken hull makes the air unlivable. Balaam tries to ambush Jupiter, but she uses a weapon to wound his legs. The palace begins to fall apart. Kane and Gregan continue to fight. While Jupiter and Balaam save themselves by clinging to a railing, Kane breaks free and continues the duel on his floating boots. He forces the beast to crash by injuring his wings, ultimately defeating him by opening a portal around Gregan's neck. Afterward, Kane contacts the Aegis and shares his location so they can rescue Jupiter's family. Meanwhile, Jupiter tries to find an exit, but the structure keeps falling apart around her. She manages to get back inside the palace. Balaam lies in wait and strikes her with a metal rod while calling her mother, confirming he was the one who killed his own mother and claiming she asked for it. Jupiter takes the rod from him. At that moment, the building completely collapses, and Balaam falls to his death. Jupiter falls as well but is caught by Kane, who gives her emergency gear. With no time left, Captain Turner opens a portal to escape. Kane uses his boots to dodge falling debris and successfully crosses through the portal. Sometime later, Jupiter is back to her normal routine, though she surprises her family by approaching her work with a much more positive attitude. Once she finishes her shifts, Jupiter meets with Kane for a date. Now, Jupiter has her own pair of floating boots, and Kane has his wings restored. After sharing a kiss, they go flying together.
Please like and subscribe.